Yeah, I'll just record just so that Ingrid and Stefan can see it too, if they're
Okay.
just,
What I'm thinking,
yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
What I'm thinking is that yes, the situation now in the States seems to be very, things are getting very serious. There are also many conflicts and blah blah. But on the other hand, what about people who might say, you know what, we're so busy, we have so many financial problems, people consume more things than those they can really afford. And I'm just thinking how people would react to this.
Yeah. So it's really like we want to spread this, but people say, hey, I'm busy, I don't have time for it. And so how do we reach those people? How do we speak to them?
I definitely believe that we have to be creatively aggressive, and these difficulties shouldn't stop us. But I'm just discussing with you possible scenarios, possible reactions. And I think that people have time, but they pretend they don't have time because they don't want to change anything. Because if people don't have time, then who is the one who checks their Facebook account so many times a day?
Mm-hmm.
They have time. People have time, but they don't want to change it. Just give me a second to turn on the fan.
Sure.
So this is what I'm thinking. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just writing it down here. It's like how might we engage people who say they are too busy?
Yeah, and also. Yeah. Also, have you seen any difference in the ways people socialize nowadays in the States? Because you live in the States for many decades, right? So you could notice a difference. Can you see this? Do you see that people become more distant, more arrogant, more selfish? Maybe. Do you see any change?
I see more polarized. And they're less willing to talk than, maybe it's always been that way, but it's just become very clear to me, that because, I tried to create these dialogues between people here in Berkeley at these events, and I just see how people are not willing to really engage in the dialogue, and that's on the left too. So it's on the political left. So I'm just starting to see the left and the right as being more mirror images. They, like, the left thinks that they're righteous, they're doing the right thing, that they want well-being for everyone, and they kind of demonize the conservatives, and then the same way. And so it just kind of gets more and more polarized. And so this whole notion of dialogue, empathy, building a culture of empathy, which we're promoting, is, it's not a huge amount of support for it, as far at one level, in terms of people going out and advocating for it. So maybe that's, what we need to do is more education, more demonstrations of what we're doing. One thing I'm looking at doing now is doing empathy circles with more high-profile leaders, people who are leading these demonstrations, and have recorded empathy circles where they dialogue with each other, and then I kind of help facilitate that, and then their followers can see how it works. And I've done some, and I think maybe to put more time into organizing those. But then we also need the training, which is something that people can easily kind of pick up, right? Is they say, oh, I want to do this, and then how can they start learning? And that's where I think the training aspect is that they can, start their own empathy circles. They have support for learning how they can start their own empathy circle in their family with some friends. And so I actually like to see it, like you see these demonstrations where everybody goes and they scream and yell. But instead of being screaming and yelling, that they would have like little empathy circles. It would be all about dialogue, you know. So those are the kind of things, you know, we're working on, but step by step.
Yeah, the idea is perfect. And you know, when I discuss it with other people, they don't try to discourage me, but they are not as excited as I am, because I think that people don't want to change. I
Yeah.
definitely believe in that. I definitely believe that this is the kind of revolution we need today, not with weapons, not with violence, but with the opposite of this, a new mindset. And I know that people have such a big difficulty when it comes to discuss. They don't know how to discuss. They don't know. They just, for example, you say something, oh, Dimitra, today I got a new bike, and you say you're happy. And I say, you know what? Today I bought a new dress. Oh, it's irrelevant, you see. I mean, I have to stay focused on you and not, oh, really? I mean, what kind of bike? Oh, okay, what the price? You know, I try to spend some more time on you, you know, instead of just talking about myself and just shifting the direction. I see it every day. People don't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is just the dialogue, everybody's just speaking about themselves and not really giving attention to the other person and letting the other person really express themselves fully until they feel heard to their satisfaction, like we do in an empathy circle. But they're just sort of competing for attention.
Yeah, who holds the floor? Yes, definitely. And you know, they end up being empty, and they say, yeah, okay, everyone, thank you. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, bye. And you know, I have this feeling that, you know, I wasn't heard. You didn't understand me. I feel empty, you know.
Mm-hmm.
This is 99% of the cases. I mean, people don't feel that they can identify with another person. They are really connected. I think they are socially connected, not personally connected, deeply connected. Yeah, we are not afraid of conflicts, because even if we have disagreements, we can find a solution. Doesn't mean that we don't love each other. We just have a disagreement. I might be angry about something, but doesn't mean that I don't like you, or even if I'm angry at you, it doesn't mean that I don't care about you. I might disagree on this issue. I don't like what you think about this, and for some reason I'm angry. But this is a different thing from my love I feel for you as a friend, as a, you know, as a partner, as a whatever we are. But people confuse, they take it personally. They say, you know what, you disagree with me, you don't like me, get out of my life. Why?
Mm-hmm. Well, what I'm hearing there is you see that the conversation tends to be superficial, and because of that superficiality, people still feel alone, even though they're getting together. They still feel alone. They don't feel really connected. And then another aspect that you see is that when people get, if something comes up and there's a conflict, then people just want to withdraw and say, oh, we had a conflict, and so I'm just going to leave. Whereas you see, well, a conflict is okay, and we need to work through it.
Definitely. All marriage counselors say that if you have a disagreement, air it, share it, talk about it. You know what? I don't like you when I don't like it when you do this, whatever. When you come late to our meetings or whatever, say it. If you keep it inside yourself, you're gonna have an explosion. Who knows when? And it's gonna be very, very bad. But people are afraid. They say, I don't want to have any disagreement. Why? I mean, disagreement is part of our life. It doesn't mean that we want to disagree. It means that when it happens to us have a disagreement, we say, okay, let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you need some kind of a way to say, hey, disagreements are fine. Our relationship can hold the disagreement. We have some ways and some tools for working it through, and that actually helps maybe deepen. So disagreement can help to actually deepen the relationship if you have the tools for holding holding it.
Definitely, yes. Disagreement can strengthen the any kind of relationship. Yes, definitely. As long as we follow some principles, you know, we just keep respecting each other, and we don't call names, and we don't throw things to each other. You know, we don't do violent things. We must say, I'm angry. You know, stop it. I don't want it anymore. I just want to leave the room and discuss it later. But I think that people can do it. They say, no, I'm fine, no problem, everything is perfect. They pretend that everything is fine while it's not.
So people are pretending things are great, everything gets swept under the carpet, we call it here under the rug, right? And it's all under there, and on the surface it all looks good, but it's kind of a mess, and that creates a sense of disconnection. And so we need that could actually be sort of a promotion for the empathy circle, is what you're addressing, right? Deepen your relationships by growing through your conflict and having the tools and the means for working through. So that could be something that's like, hey, this is how you can have deeper relationships and enjoy and grow from your conflicts.
Yes, definitely.
So it can be, it could be a promotion, sort of a, promoting aspect, something that you will get, how it will contribute to your well-being by taking this training.
Yes, overall well-being actually, because when we keep things in ourselves, we don't feel well, and our body complains about it, high blood pressure, stomach ache, we feel dizzy, when the heart suffers, the body suffers as well. They are interconnected. So people have health issues because they cannot really share themselves, and they cannot open up their heart and just say whatever they want to say, because they're afraid that the other people might, how can I say, they might leave them alone, they might be without any friends, and they pretend that everything is fine. The point is, what are we going to do so as to solve the situation? So I'm sharing these thoughts with you because I want to make it work, not to stop, not for us to stop working towards this direction. We need it, definitely.
So what I'm hearing there is, here's these things get swept under the carpet, under the rug, because people are afraid of airing them, because if you air it, people will leave you and you'll end up being by yourself. And so that's maybe one of the fears that's keeping people from being open. And if you keep everything inside and you're not able to air it and bring it up, that keeping it all is it causes health issues, because there's a constriction, there's a hiding of your true self, and it's going to cause like stress and anxiety, and that actually affects your body. So your body will start getting health issues around keeping all these things hidden. So that's like another benefit, is not only are you able to air and work through your conflicts and create deeper connection, you're able to work through, you're able to air, bring up your issues and not keep them hidden, which will help you with your health benefits. So you'll feel calmer, you'll feel more at ease, you'll feel, I guess, more open, you'll have less stress, because I guess it's that stress that creates that sense of that the health issues is that underlying stress.
Definitely. I have a book. Okay, so give me a second to show you a book. Oh, this is a book I really love. You might know it. It's an old book.
Power of Positive Thinking. I've heard of it.
Appeal. It's one of the classic American books. So that was a book I first read in 2011, and I spent a whole summer reading it again. I loved it, and it was here where I realized the deep connection that there is between our body and our feelings, how much our feelings can affect our health. I wasn't aware of that. Okay, I said there might be a connection, a close connection. And the writer was a pastor and a doctor. he was a pastor, he had studied medicine. So he said that only 1/3 of the diseases we humans have are because of, how can I say, pathological issues. Only 1/3. The 2/3 of them come from emotions. So it's because we don't feel well, for example, have stomach ache because of the constriction, as you said before, or headaches or other very important, very serious health conditions. It's because of how we feel. And our body starts, I'm shocked. What I said, it's not about positive thing, you know, having this superficial attitude where we say, oh, you know, everything will be fine. Let's smile, let's stay positive. No, it's something, it's a very serious situation where we try to get life the way it is, try to improve the situation, and try to form real deep connections with others.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm just reflecting what I'm hearing. So it's that this book was sort of a momentous book for you because it showed you the connection between illness and well-being, and that it's like, what is it? You said 2/3. He's saying that 2/3 of physical illness, everything from headache, stomach ache, whatever. What?
Only 1/3.
Oh, 1/3 is caused by the kind of emotional issues or relational issues.
No. 1/3 comes only from pathological reasons.
Oh, do you mean pathological, like viruses and so forth? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so 1/3 is like, you know, breaking a leg or getting a cold or getting you know, some virus or something. 1/3 of the health issues with that, a cancer maybe, and then 2/3 is really stems from sort of the emotional dysfunction, the issues, conflicts, and so forth. So it sounded like that was very, it meant a lot to you. It was a real insight for you, and you felt some real clarity or excitement by reading that and just seeing the importance of the whole emotional aspect.
Definitely, yes. And then I realized that I have to do something about it. And I said that I want to help myself and others to learn how to build better relationships with people. Because I realized that people don't know how to build relations, not love affairs, any kind of human relationship with students, with friends, with parents, kids, partners, life partners, business partners. How do I build a relationship? And who has ever tried to teach me this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So from this book, you saw that, hey, relationships are really important. And you want to contribute, I guess, to humanity by helping foster better human relationships. And then when you look through your life, you say, where did you get help on this? Where did you ever learn this? Did you learn this in the school, or where did you learn it? And it's like there wasn't any place where you really learned how to have more positive, effective relationships.
Absolutely, because when you come from a family where everything is peaceful and you have your parents who take care of everything, things might be a little better unless you become a selfish and a selfish person or a taker. There are some cases like this, but also there are people who are kind because they come from a kind and warm environment. However, I had many problems in my family, and it was very hard for me I had to try very hard to learn how to build connections because I was a very tender person and I could become easily hurt. But on the other hand, I'm also very strong. But, you know, I had to solve many issues. I said, wait a second, what about other people who have the same problems like me or even more serious and might not be as determined or as strong as I am? And they end up being depressed because they don't know how to build relationships and they fail, you know? Can we do anything about these people? So that was a eureka moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you had a eureka moment that you're growing up, you're very sensitive, but you're strong too. You're sensitive but strong, and so you were sort of navigating this family environment, being sensitive. And then you're saying, well, I'm not the only one that's going through this. There's other people going through it as well, having this. They might not be as strong or able, or their problems might even be worse. So how, yeah, so it's like with the eureka moment was thinking about others and how you could contribute to
Yes,
helping them with their relationships.
exactly. Yes. So, what do you want us to do now? Do you want me to reflect to you, or do you want us to talk about your about the culture of empathy and how you could expand it, how you could organize some works? Do you want us to discuss this?
Yeah, we could just discuss it using empathic listening. So if you feel heard, I could speak and we could just sort of explore it using empathic listening and see.
So,
Does that work?
okay, so you want us to just to change now? And
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah, because I enjoyed hearing your story, like your insights. I think that's very helpful in terms of developing a training to know where you're coming from, what your experiences are, and kind of the direction you want to go. So I see that as very helpful in terms of what we're trying to create.
Oh, really? Thank you. You know what? When
If you want to just reflect back, it's my turn now.
oh yeah, sure. Okay, so what you said is that you really find it very helpful for us to keep discussing the way we do, keep reflecting with each other, and this helps you understand more about my experiences, and this will help you. I didn't really get this part. This will help you in with designing something.
Yeah, if we're working together to design a training, to know that the motivation, what you want to do is contribute to people improving their relationships. So we can make that part of the invitation, say, here is how not to sweep problems under the rug, but to address them. And this will have the benefit of your health, your well-being will be better because of less stress. And so that's right there is a very beautiful sort of a message to people that would, I think, would attract, some people to the empathy training, just to hear the reason for taking part.
Okay, what I heard is that you find very useful my me sharing my thoughts with you on what really motivated me to get involved into this. How can I say? You find it helpful that I'm sharing with you what's really motivated me to start working on empathy and why empathic listening is important. And you think that the connection I mentioned before between empathy and airing our feelings, the connection between airing our feelings and our physical condition, our health, is something that could attract the attention of many other people. And they might be interested in joining us and trying this empathic listening in their life as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, here is the way to do it. This is the way to help air what's under the carpet, the things that we're keeping hidden. And here's some tools for doing it. And then we can explain, here are the tools, and we show them how to do it. And then that would mean we would need to find a way for people to share what's kind of deeper inside, right? That's a component of maybe sharing your fears, your anxieties, your concerns. So, because that's what we keep hidden, right? Usually it's the fears that we keep hidden under the rug. And we want to be able to bring those out to air them and to work through them.
Okay, you understand. You have noticed that people tend to keep their fears hidden and they don't want to share them, but you feel that this is an important issue and we should solve it. We should not be afraid of that and we should share it. This will help us build up stronger connections with each other.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of a fear and anxiety is just how to develop this training in an effective way. So that's like a bit of a concern for me, you know, that, and so I kind of look at that, like how to do this effectively. Like, what is it that will really connect with people? You know, it's like, I feel like I haven't found the energy that, you know, really connects with people yet. And I have like sort of a bit of a concern, a worry, like, oh, can we find, you know, we find some people, but it hasn't really, you know, really worked. So that's one concern. It feels, I feel a little anxious about that. So.
I understand. It seems that you really think about what would be the right way to invite more people, to make people feel that in the culture of empathy, there is a solution to many of their problems, and that they could, the training they can get from the seminars would be useful and could become even more popular. Because so far, okay, you have seen some people expressing their interest, but so far this interest is not as big as you would like it to be. You think that something is still missing.
Yeah. And the thing is so it's sort of the means of creating the training is to share my own anxieties, to share my own concerns, to air those issues, right? To start, what are concerns and worries that we have? What do I have concerns about? So the way to address that is for me to share my own concerns and worries and that I have hidden. I don't want to hide those concerns and worries either, because by sharing those, we're kind of doing what we're trying to promote.
Yes, I understand. So it seems that you feel that the right thing for you to do is to share your fears and not to put them under the carpet, something that very many people do so. And even though you haven't come up with a solution so far, you think that this is the best thing for you to do, and that's why you take the chance now to share these thoughts of yours and worries of yours with me, and just probably this makes you feel a little more relieved.
Yeah, and it's also the means are the end. I don't know if you've heard that term. Is the way, the goal we have, the means that we use to get there is the end itself. So by me sharing my own concerns, my own worries, that's sort of the goal of what we're creating. So we need to be kind of open and share our own vulnerabilities, our own concerns, our own worries, in terms of creating what it is we create. Because when people go and protest, you know, they scream and yell at each other, that's the world they're creating, right? Because the means, the way you try to get to something is what you create. So if we kind of go sharing our own vulnerabilities, our own fears, our own anxieties, then we're going to create a world where people can share that with each other.
Okay, so even though you haven't really come up with the thing that would attract big numbers of people, you think that what exactly you are doing this moment is the main purpose, and you want, if we want people to show people the value of the importance of sharing themselves with others, then the best thing we can do now is just to share our own selves with each other and just share concerns and anxieties. This is what we do right now, what we're doing right now, and this is what we want others to do.
Yeah.
We produce, we treat each other the way we want others to treat their friends and their partners and so on.
Yeah, and there's that term, the means are the end.
Oh, the means are the end. Yes, right.
Yeah, so I feel heard. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Felt nice.
You too. Okay, so do you want to continue now? Do you want us to continue like this?
Yeah, for a while, maybe, as we...
Yeah, so when it comes to empathy, I mean, the culture of empathy, our project, I'm very concerned about the cultural differences. I always keep it in my mind because we are raised in a different way. I don't know. I would like you to tell me if you see any difference in the way I communicate to you. I mean, do you understand that I'm not American? I mean, except for the language, because I'm not a native speaker, so I have an accent. Of course, you can understand that I'm not a native speaker. But other than this, could you notice a difference culturally speaking? And that was something I would love I would love it if you could let me know.
Okay, so what you have concerns about in terms of doing a training is different people are coming from different cultures, and the cultures have different ways of sort of relating, and you're kind of have concerns about that. How do we address those concerns? And you're wondering if I see a difference in how you and I are relating, and if there's like, that's what I was kind of.
Yeah.
You're just kind of curious, like, hey, do you see some difference in how we relate?
Yeah, because I see differences when I see you, and I have noticed that most of the people in your groups are Americans, except some Indians, maybe. Okay, I don't know all of them, of course, but I think that most of them are Americans, and I see the difference. And I say, oh gosh, I mean, they say this, we use the same word, but many times I've noticed a different content. And I'm thinking about how I could just transfer this training back to Greece. What are the things I should change or add or remove so as to make the message, bring it closer to them, making it speak to their heart. How can I make this?
Mm-hmm. So you're really wanting to take this empathy training and bring it closer to what will work with people in Greece. And when you see the groups that we have, most of them are American, so you're seeing the quality of the dialogue, the way people speak, and that it's kind of different from what might be in Greece. So you're just trying to kind of see those differences and see how it could speak to people in Greece.
Yeah, and also how could we handle it when we have a group of people who receive their training, and this group of 5-10 people come from different countries? How can we make it work? Different religions. I mean, I'm not saying that it cannot work. I'm absolutely positive. I'm just trying to come up with solutions to the potential upcoming problems. This is how I think.
Okay, so you're just imagining potential problems that will come from different people from different cultures coming together and trying to figure out how to head off those problems. So sort of anticipate the problems and how can you head those problems off. And so you're just thinking about it. It sounds like you're kind of stuck, maybe feeling a little stuck in terms of how to do it. So.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think that, I don't know how this might sound, but when I was a kid, I was told that the war is a bad thing, while peace is a beautiful thing. Okay. And I said, peace is a beautiful thing, fine. But I couldn't imagine that when people don't have big issues, big problems, they create trouble for themselves. I mean, from stories coming from my grandparents, I mean, I realized that people, when they faced big challenges, they were closer to each other emotionally. And now, when people have peace and they have to eat, they have water, clean water, they have all these good things, people end up being depressed. People were not depressed 50 years ago, not that much, but now they're depressed. I mean, they have everything and they commit suicide. Why is that?
So you're just sitting with stories you heard that, I guess, from your grandmother, that when there was a war and the family members were so much closer, there was a real feeling of closeness within the war. But now when people have peace, that people feel depressed and they are just unhappy, and you just don't understand why they don't feel close, why they feel closer in a war and feel depressed when it comes to peace. And it's just like a mystery, like, why is that?
I mean, of course, I'm not implying that we need a war, but I'm just thinking, what's wrong here? We should have been happy and satisfied. And I think that consumerism might be the culprit here, because and not all people during the war were kind and helpful, but I mean, they used to help not only family members, but you could find a woman who was breastfeeding her baby, and she could keep some milk for another baby who was crying, you know. And I mean, there was no reason for her to do so, but she felt that she can help the baby to survive. You see what I'm saying? Crazy things. Nowadays, if you ask a mother to give a chocolate to a strange child, she will say no, even though she might be rich. And no, I don't want to give it. You see, it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense that in a wartime, people were more generous and open and supporting of each other. And now when it's peace, they become even more greedy and stingy. And you think it may be the philosophy of consumerism that's kind of alienating people. And you would like people to have that sense of closeness, but in a state of peace as well. And just don't understand why the situation is the way it is.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. I would really love people, as you said, to be as generous as they were in challenging times, really.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just would like them to have that sense of connection and closeness, like when times are difficult, that they would have that closeness in times of peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's see. I could be, you know, I think about that. It's like there is the sense of that disconnection is maybe, like you say, from consumerism. Society has been built on certain values, maybe a sense of self-interest, you know, go do your own self-interest, and that will build the economy and things will get built. And then people start feeling alienated and alone. And there's a lot of aloneness and alienation. And that's what I see as the culture of empathy, is saying, you know, really this sense of connection, of deeper connection, a deepening connection, hearing each other's, you know, felt experience and sharing that is really, should be like a primary social value. We sort of need to redesign society around this value of empathy.
Mm-hmm. So you see, you can notice this alienation, and people develop kind of self-interest, and consumerism also can be blamed for this. And you really feel that the culture of empathy can be the antidote to the situation and can help people fight loneliness and depression, and they can become really connected with each other.
Yeah, because already the empathy is used in the whole therapeutic world, right? It's like people have that alienation and that all those mental problems that are coming from all those feelings hidden under the rug, it comes out in all kinds of mental problems besides physical, kind of mental dysfunction, you know, phobias, anxieties, alienation. So there's all these mental problems, and where do they go? They go to a therapist, who the therapist just sits and listens to them at the core and offers them empathy, right, for the healing. So that's where they go for healing, and then they pay $100 to the therapist that kind of listens to them, and then they, you know, so the therapists are kind of preparing people who are kind of, they're throwing them back into the culture, right? Into this selfish culture. The therapist just kind of helps them, the worst cases, if they can pay for it, and then throws them back into it. And so what we're trying to do is say, no, we need to have this as be the core value of the mutual listening, and it will head off these mental problems. So you can save money on going to therapists. You save a lot of money on therapy by having this, doing this before, kind of, it's like preventative, mental health.
Yeah, I understand. So what you're saying is that building this culture of empathy can save a lot of money to people, but above this, and I mean, seriously speaking, can save a lot of pain from people, because instead of them being alone and suffering because of the alienation they feel, instead of going to a therapist, paying money, and the therapist will just throw them back to this arrogant society, we could build a culture of empathy where people will learn how to offer, how to practice empathic listening, how to listen carefully to the other person. And so by doing this, people will be more satisfied, their brain, their psychological condition will be in a better condition, and so no phobias, anxieties, and all these things that might decrease their life quality.
Yeah.
So they will avoid all this, and they will just have more people to air their feelings and share themselves with.
Yeah, so you're heading off a lot of the mental issues, problems, as well as 2/3 of those physical issues too. So it's sort of like preventative medicine in a sense, so you're preventing a lot of strain, and then when you do have the problems, you have the tools to work through those so that they don't build up and end up under the carpet, where then they eventually they blow up, right? I mean, it's not like they always stay there. It's like, 10, 20, 30 years, these issues are under there. And then at some point they blow up into, big, serious wars and stuff.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that the culture of empathy can help people keep a better quality of health, and you can see the clear connection between empathy and good health, and people will not have to put things under the carpet and air them unexpectedly after 20, 30 years, and who knows what the consequences of this explosion might be. So you think that people can have a better health, because as we mentioned before, when people don't feel well, the body suffers as well. So if we cultivate this culture of empathy, health will be better, emotional condition will be better, and people will be happier after all.
Yeah. And the trick, though, is there's so much under the carpet now. It's like Pandora's box, right? Pandora's box. You open it up, and all the demons come out, and it just becomes overwhelming, right? I think that's what happens is people start becoming afraid of opening Pandora's box, because all the demons will come out. And so the empathy circle is sort of a little process for letting a few demons out at a time. So we let a few demons out, we kind of work through them and kind of try to get to the bottom of the, eventually to the bottom of the barrel, the bottom of the case or the box.
Yeah, so you use this Greek myth, the Pandora's box, where the demons eventually just came out of the box and a catastrophe took place. So this is what you believe that happens when people put things under the carpet and the explosion takes place unexpectedly. But what we can do by cultivating this culture of empathy is that we try to deal with these little demons. I mean, a few of them every time. So we will not experience a huge explosion. We might have minor, smaller explosions from time to time, and this will help us manage the difficulty and the tension that might come up.
Yeah, I feel heard.
Okay, that was very good with Pandora's box. You're right. I mean, I'm always so happy when we have these sessions meetings every Monday, because I feel that I open up myself to people who really understand what I'm talking about. I don't have to persuade them about anything. They are here with me for the same purpose. And that's amazing. Money, I mean, it's not for money, it's just about a vision. And it just really touches my heart.
Mm-hmm. So you're really celebrating, and your heart is touched by coming into these meetings that we do, because you're with others who have the same sort of vision of life, and you don't have to like convince them, and you can just go into it, and so it really touches you, and you feel just touched by this.
Yeah, it's a very good thing when you don't have to persuade others for the value of an idea. And it's so good when others understand you and share the same view, so you can work with them on the implementation of the idea instead of spending time persuading them. For example, you might say, Dimitra, we need empathy. Oh, come on, Edward, who cares about empathy? Another argument. And I come up with a counter argument. After some time, you might say, Dimitra, leave it. Okay, doesn't matter. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, it's like in general, you talk to somebody, say, hey, we need a culture of empathy. We need more empathy. And they start giving you counter arguments, and it becomes sort of a battle, and it just becomes very frustrating, and you just want to kind of give up, because it's just kind of an unpleasant experience. And here you come to our empathy groups, and you feel supported, and you feel heard, and you feel like there's no conflict. It's just you're able to share with people who have similar values and see the world similarly, and then you can also start working on constructive things together, because you're not trying to convince, you're kind of working, moving forward with the constructive steps that can be done.
Right, and I firmly believe that, I mean, everybody would like to have one person on this planet willing to listen to them empathically. I mean, just stay there and listen. I mean, they need it. They are thirsty for that, without judging, without interrupting, without saying, you know what, who cares about you? I want to share my personal story with you. I mean, we can talk about you later, but now I'm just trying to, open up my chest and just tell you how I feel. I really think that people are crazy about it. They really want it, but they are not willing to offer it first. So, how can I expect you to give me something if I'm not willing to give it to you first?
So you're seeing that every human being really needs one person where they can really open up and share and just fully be able to express themselves and be heard, fully, without the other person, trying to shut them down or kind of take the attention. That everybody really sort of desires that, and that you see that the problem is that everybody sort of wants that, but they're not willing to be the person that listens first. And because so that's sort of a problem that you see there, that people aren't willing to be the first listeners to start the ball rolling.
Yeah, I mean, first, before asking for something, I should be able to offer it. If I want a good friend, I should check that I can be a good friend for the other person. If I look for a good husband, I should check if I can be a good wife. I mean, you see, if I look for good students, I should check if I'm a good teacher. I have to check myself first.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how I think.
Yeah, so you're saying if you want to have that, be good at, be a good teacher, a good husband, a good wife, or you're wanting that from others, that you need to be able to do it yourself. So if you want to be heard, if you want to be seen and be empathically heard, you need to be able to first listen, empathically listen to others. And so you just see the importance of being able to be the person that can offer it first.
Yes, and you know, sometimes I think that religion, and I can talk about Christianity because this is my experience. Once in Greece, we are Orthodox Christians. It doesn't mean that it's all only in Christianity, but this thing, where my experience comes from. They used to air their fears to God, praying. And how do I know this? From literature and from very old movies, old TV series, where I saw mainly women kneeling in front of the icon, and they would just talk, God or Virgin Mary, you know, I feel this, and they would open up themselves, because at that time societies were very strict, you know, you were not allowed to do anything unless you could just how can I say, be inside the box. If you didn't belong to how can I say that, if you used to do something strange, unusual, then you would be expelled. So people didn't want to say, for example, somebody's homosexual. Oh, that would be a disgrace, right? Or a woman who cannot have children. Very bad thing. An unmarried woman, you know, maybe a person who didn't look good, but people felt sad about it and they wanted to air their pain someone to another person. And they would do this through their prayers.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking before about that everybody needs someone that will listen to them, that can be able to express themselves. And you're seeing in history, like I guess in Greece, or I'm not sure where, but people were living within very tight constraints, like in a box. And they couldn't talk about, you know, homosexuality or, you know, not being able to have children. So there was a real constriction in terms of what you could really be and say and do. But that you were saying that religion was the space where you could have the icon, or you could have God there that you could really pour your heart out to. And this was the place that someone would listen to just everything that you had to say. And so religion sort of became the place for that, having someone that would listen to you about everything that's kind of on your heart.
Yes, definitely. And also that was the purpose of confession. The mystery, the ritual of confession had this purpose, that that in Greece we don't have the same ritual like Catholics. You don't go to this I don't know if you are Christians or something, but you have seen in movies that go to this little room, you know. In Greece it's not like this. In Orthodox Christianity, they just go and to meet the priest, and the priest might give a prayer. But the point is that confession was for people to air their bad things, their sins, and not leave anything under the carpet. But after some decades and some centuries, priests started to become very strict, you know, and then people started to say, I don't want this confession thing. How can I open up my heart to somebody who steals, who is not a good priest, blah, blah, blah. So that's why they stopped giving value to confession, even though the purpose of it was so serious.
Mm-hmm. So historically, or at least in the time period, the confession was a place to kind of be able to share and open up. But then it's like the priests became, you know, so you're seeing all the problems with the priests, you know, all the corruption. So people didn't trust the priests anymore to be able to open up to them. So that avenue for opening and having that open, transparent feelings, sharing whatever's under the carpet, so to speak, kind of closed off, so that people don't really trust that avenue anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think that it was nature people could just feel free and air their fears while they would talk to an animal, to a tree. You know, they were farmers. They were in close connection to nature, and this would help them just feel more free. And also the other thing is the religion, that once people couldn't go to any therapists, there were no therapists at that time, so they could just confess there, and also they could also pray directly to God. And nowadays we don't have any of these. People are not in the nature, so they cannot feel all this openness you feel when you are in a valley, and you feel that you can just even talk to yourself and feel a little more relief. They don't have that. They don't go to church. They don't pray, most probably, and so they go to therapists. And as you said before, the therapist after some sessions will throw them back to this wild society, and that's why we have the solution.
Okay, so you're saying, like, how do people really feel heard? And you know, there's a very constricted society from before, and people had a avenue of, you know, talking to the priest, but then that's been closed off. And another avenue is just being out in nature. People could sort of communicate and open up within nature, and that now people are more, you know, in the cities, and they don't have that avenue. And then they kind of started going to therapists, and then the therapist kind of listens to them, but then they get thrown out into society again, and everything goes under the carpet. So that is where we offer kind of this empathic way, as a way of having that, having a space to open up and share, you know, what's going on in you, in your heart. And
yeah, definitely. I can't recall. Can you give me the name of one of the biggest American poets?
Walt Whitman.
Whitman, exactly. Yes, Whitman. Yes, Whitman. He was in love with nature, and he talked about the positive effect nature has, or used to have, on human beings. So nature could liberate them, could make them feel more free. That's why I'm talking about nature. That I mean, I have some reasons. There are some reasons that make me talk about that nature played their role, but now people feel more suffocated because they just live in these super modern cities where, you know, no nature, no birds, no trees, nothing. Just they try to survive running behind deadlines.
So the nature was a place, like Walt Whitman said, that you could sort of commune with nature, you could connect with nature, and it would open you up. And in society now, we are living in our, you know, our small environments. We're just seeing TV, and it's very constricting. And so it's kind of closing off instead of opening us up.
Yeah, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. So one thing I was thinking, like, I really enjoy hearing how you express, you know, ideas, and very open to metaphor, you know, with metaphor, like, you know, like Pandora's box is a metaphor, under the rugs is a metaphor. So that creates a sort of a richness in the expression of ideas. So it seems like you're very open to that, and I really appreciate that. I find that very, very enjoyable.
Okay, what I heard, even though I'm not really sure that I got it properly, you say that you feel very, very happy and satisfied that even though we use these metaphors like Pandora's box or putting things under the carpet, you feel that I have no problem with that, and I welcome it. So
Yeah.
this is an extra pleasure.
Yeah, so, and it's the culture thing that you're talking about, because I think that's what's coming to my mind, is that, you know, in Northern Europe or in the United States, it may be more of an intellectual, analytical sort of a mindset. It's more kind of a structured kind of feeling to it, and there's sort of an open, emotional I mean, well, everything, even the constriction of North Europe is an emotion, a feeling, right? It's a feeling of kind of constriction and focus and concentration. And so you're bringing sort of a feeling of openness and, I don't know, there's an ease to it. There's a richness to the felt experience that I feel talking with you. And I think Stefan mentioned it as well. So he experienced that as well.
Okay, what you say is that you see tonight while we are talking, you see the difference in the way I react to your comments compared to how another person coming from Northern Europe might have reacted, because according to your experience, people from Northern Europe are more focused to technical details,
Yeah.
and the romanticism or maybe spirituality might not be very close to them, so they have a different way of thinking. But you find it very good that you can share these things with me, and you think that in our discussion are also some elements coming from the Eastern philosophy, and this is something very good.
So it's a different feeling, a set of feelings. And I think this addresses what you're talking about, the different cultures, that the cultures are all bringing their own unique way of being, and it adds to the richness, I would say, and the variety of the empathy circle, right? It's that I had that experience when I traveled. Like I grew up here in California, and when I was 17, I finished school and I started traveling around the world. So I went to South Pacific and Australia, New Zealand and Indonesia, Southeast Asia and India and, Iran, Iraq and Europe and Russia and China, and just travel all over the place. And going from one country to the next, there was a whole feeling that it's like the country, the emotional felt experience changed, like within each country. And I enjoyed that. It was like, it felt like a richness of physical richness to move from one to the other. So I think that the empathy circle is a container for holding that richness of different cultures. So each culture, be it the more constricted, concentrated feeling, be it a more open, heart-centered feeling, that all the different feelings can be brought into an empathy circle and just adds to the richness of the circle.
Mm-hmm. So, with reference to my previous comment of the problems that might occur when people from different cultures might group in together and just try to practice empathic listening, you feel that this is not a threat, it doesn't pose any danger. On the contrary, you think that these differences will add an extra element to the discussion, and it is because of your previous experience of traveling around the world that you can say that, because every time you move from one country to the next, you felt the difference in the way people would communicate, the whole atmosphere. And for that, you are very positive when it comes to groups of empathy being made up of different people with different culture. You find it as a element of richness and not as a potential threat.
Yeah. I think that the empathy circle can handle any culture and any set of values or feelings. That it's something that can hold, whatever comes up.
Mm-hmm. You think that the way the empathy circle is being
structured, maybe, or yeah.
Yes, you think that it can manage, it can welcome all these differences, and people will not have any problem. They will feel fine no matter what their cultural differences might be.
Yeah, there are issues of, their motivation for taking part. There's going to be maybe different motivations, what will speak to them. So we need to address that. And we also need, like, you know, it's Pandora's box. When you open it up, sometimes it's like all the spirits come out, and it's just like hell, right? It's like people stop listening, they scream and yell. And that's where you need like a better container, you know, that there's more preparation needed for like really big conflicts to kind of hold those. And there are other tools that we add to the empathy circle that help with kind of more serious conflicts.
Mm-hmm. So even though you feel that cultural differences will not be a danger, you think that there might be some differences the motivations.
Yeah.
The motivation of people might, each person might have, will probably be different. So we have to be careful with that. And you, once again, you realize that it will be very dangerous when the Pandora's box will open up, and if we discuss some, challenging issues, people might start shouting and fighting, so we might lose the control of the situation. And for that purpose, we have to use the other tools, so as for us to be ready to manage these serious conflicts whenever they take place.
Yeah, for example, I did an empathy circle with my partner, Joan, and my sister-in-law, right, online. We were doing it here. And something happened where they just would not reflect back anymore. They just started screaming and yelling at each other. It's like they just wouldn't stop and fully listen to the other person. So they're both just screaming and yelling at each other because they just both got so upset, something somebody else said. And and so then I have to listen to one, I have to listen to the other, I listen to them. So I kind of shift them from talking to each other, that I start listening to them, and then I get them calmed down enough where they'll start listening to each other, because there's a lot of pain under there. They just have all this pain and anxiety, and it all kind of comes out, and just like an explosion. And there you need, if you just leave it, the whole thing is going to blow up. So you need a facilitator kind of hold it, and then also to prepare people and to build a whole support system around fostering that empathic way of being. And, they need to be practicing it well before, they get to this. So there's a lot of support needs to be around these really big conflicts.
Mm-hmm. So recently you experienced a fight between your partner and your sister-in-law, and suddenly they just started having kind of a violent discussion. They started screaming, and you realized that you had to be the intermediator.
Mm-hmm. Mediator, yeah.
Mediator, okay. And so you had to play this role so as to help them calm down and feel more, take away the big pain each one of them might have felt. And this made you realize that in these cases, in this kind of serious conflict, a lot of preparation should be done before.
Yeah.
And mediators need a lot of support in order for them to be successful in their role. So you're thinking about the ways we could use so as to help people become better mediators, and also for us to become better mediators.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, as well as if people, in an empathy, if you bring people together in an empathy circle and they haven't practiced much before and haven't developed a lot of trust in the process, it can kind of blow up. So it's helpful if they have, like, in their families, way before, there's a lot of practice, beforehand, so that when they come to like a conflict circle, that they already have this experience and this trust in the process. So there's a lot of different kind of aspects for, dealing with these really tough issues. And they come up in, just my family. My sister and mother had a screaming, yelling match. And, so it just happens everywhere, not even cross-cultural. It's just within families it happens.
Mm-hmm. So you see these conflicts taking place every day in every culture, in every family or relationship, and you feel that those people who might come from an environment where they had practiced something like empathic listening, then they might score higher in their personal life, but that's not the case with those who come from different families, different backgrounds, and they don't know a thing about what empathic listening is and how we can practice it.
Yeah, so you need all that support, so it's a lot of practice, a lot of support. So it's like you don't take an empathy training workshop and then you're an expert. It's like it's an ongoing, weekly, daily practice that we need to people need to sign up for. It's just like, it's like the exercise, right? With the, I've got I don't know where they went, my weights. I've got my weights for doing the exercise here. And you don't just do the lifting, one time. It's like every day you got to do some practice. And it's sort of the same way with the empathy. It takes a regular ongoing practice to deepen it.
So when it comes to empathic listening, it's not like any other workshop. You attend it, you practice for a while, then you become an expert. It's like workout where you have to lift your weights on a regular basis if you want to have some long-lasting results. Otherwise, nothing will last forever. And we need practice and training every day in order for us know how to manage these conflicts and become good at this.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel heard.
Okay. What I'm thinking is that what might happen when these are the things that I'm really concerned about. First is, okay, we practice empathic listening, but in real life, we just, when you say something, I'm listening to you and say, oh yeah, Edwin, I understand. I mean, okay, let's say that you call me, hi Dimitra, how are you? I say, how are you? And you tell me, I had a difficult day at work. I say, oh really? I have a reaction. I'm not answering like, oh, you had a difficult day at work. I'm saying something to build up, and oh really, what happened? And you say, you know what, blah, blah, blah. And then I say, oh really, what did you do next? So I mean, how are we going to move from empathic listening, where we just reflect, to the real life situation, where we just also contribute to this discussion? We add our own reaction to this.
Mm-hmm. So you're really wondering, like right now we're using this empathic listening with each other, like you're speaking, I'm reflecting back, then I share and you reflect back. We go back and forth now, but in regular, daily experience, it's more fluid. It's like ongoing sort of this dialogue. And how do we sort of incorporate that mindset into our everyday sort of experience?
Right, because people will ask me about it. If I start practicing this with them, they will ask me, how will we react? How should I react when my friend tells me this? And I don't want only to reflect, but I want to have my reflective reaction. And I don't want to feel suffocated, because when you say something, I want to ask you, I want to just be myself. So through empathic listening, the reflective listening we practice now in every session, sometimes makes me stop from being myself. I have to follow the regulations, but that's not the case in real life. So how will we make it work? I'm very curious about it.
You're very curious about how you're curious, like how do we take what we're doing here and bring it into our everyday life? And it's because in everyday life, people are kind of going back and forth with their conversation, and it's different in terms of the structured turn-taking that we're doing here. And so how do we incorporate this way of being into our daily life? our daily conversations and relationships and conversations.
Yeah, because I really believe in this and I really want to see it work. And it doesn't matter if we are not so many today. It's not about the number of believers, it's how firm believers these believers are, how much they deeply believe in what they do. And yeah, I'm one of them. I really believe in that. I really believe in generosity, kindness, being a giver. I mean, just care about the other, even if the others don't care, just care. And if they are toxic, then okay, you have to step back and take care of your heart, but just give. I mean, I always believe that only a fertile field can give, good fruit. So even if you take the fruit, next year the field will give, the tree will give good fruits again because it's fertile, strong. So even if some people don't treat us that well, okay, we might be hurt, but we have to move on and not change ourselves. Not being naive, but just be generous. I mean, not be stingy with feelings. Okay, just give. That's what I think.
Yeah, so it's like you're really looking at how you you're like a true believer into this empathic way of being, but you're looking at how do you bring it into your everyday life. There's going to be people who, are not this way, and they're just going to be stingy and selfish. And how do you address that? And, you might have to cut some people off, but can you have more space and tolerance for people who are, maybe a little bit that way? And I didn't quite get the metaphor of a field, that you're kind of preparing a field, and that field will produce, positive relationship, but you got to sort of prepare the soil and prepare the space. Is that?
What I tried to say was that only you can steal apples from a fertile apple tree. So even if you steal some apples, the tree will give new apples again because it's fertile. So a person whose heart is blossomed, even if we hurt the person will be kind again. I mean, it's the way the person is.
So metaphorically, that if you're a kind person, a caring person, an empathic person, someone can come and take something from you, but then it recovers, and then the next year it produces the same fruit. It doesn't wither and die or become stingy, and that it keeps producing. And so you want to produce this, have this fertile land and tree that can keep producing this fruit of kindness and generosity and empathy.
Yes, exactly. For example, I'll tell you this. So you do this thing. How many hours a day you spend on this project? I don't know. You tell me, 5, 10, 15, who knows how many hours. If I talk to somebody else about what you have started, people might say, really? How much money does he make out of this? Oh, really? I don't believe it. They will not believe that somebody was crazy in a positive sense to start something alone with support of a few people, who knows. But maybe alone, maybe one person decide to do something about how many people are going to believe that this is true. They will say, no, you're a liar. You pretend, you take money from this, from that, whatever. You see, they don't believe it.
Yeah, so there's going to be people who don't believe in the empathy. It's basically, in a sense, they're saying everybody's selfish, everybody's greedy, everybody just cares about themselves, and I don't believe that there's somebody trying to build a culture of empathy, because somewhere underneath there's some kind of greed, there's some kind of a selfishness, and that's the way the world works. So we don't believe it, we don't trust it, and there's something wrong here somewhere. We don't see it yet, but somewhere there's something.
Yeah, especially an American. If it was an Indian person, we could say maybe, but people judging from the impression a nation gives, with these prejudices. People say, no, this is impossible. But you know what? There are people who are givers. I mean, they are. Yes, they live among us. I mean, we can't change it.
Hmm. So you're kind of standing up saying there are people who give, who kind of value this. And people are especially skeptical if there's somebody from the United States, because they see the United States as this totally self-centered and kind of greedy kind of a space. And you're kind of standing up and saying, no, there are people who are kind of generous and do give.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a question of how to bring this into everyday life. And part of it, I think, is you need to be resourced. We need to be resourced ourselves. So when we do this empathic listening, it kind of meets our own need for connection and being heard and kind of sharing things that are under the carpet, so to speak. So it's a way of sort of mutual exercise. You know, if we're doing we're kind of exercising together, right? We're kind of getting stronger and exercising together. So that when we do go out into these environments where people are skeptical and are not willing to listen in return, that we have already done our exercise. We don't need them for fulfilling our basic needs for connection and being heard.
Mm-hmm. So you see that our practice, I mean, our meetings are so valuable because we share our thoughts and our words and anything, everything positive or negative. And this gives us a feeling of satisfaction. So even if other people are not willing to listen to us and offer this empathic listening, we have already satisfied our need for connection. And, we feel that somebody has already heard us. So we feel absolutely satisfied in our heart.
Yeah, so like metaphorically, if we go out and say, hey, do you want to exercise with me? And everybody says, no, 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 that we have our own empathy gym here. So this is the empathy gym, right? We're here practicing our empathy skills and developing and getting kind of stronger in our capacity for empathy. And, you know, I feel heard, I hope you feel heard, and we both feel heard. So our capacity and our empathic strength and presence is sort of strengthened. So when we go to those environments, that we can hear people's concerns, like, oh, I hear you just don't trust people from America. You just think they're all greedy. You think that people are just in it for themselves. Is that what you're saying? And then tell me more. It's like you start hearing what's behind what they're saying, but you've got the space, the resilience, and capacity to do that.
Mm-hmm. So you feel that this practice is viable here, and even if nobody wants to, let's say, to practice with us, we have already satisfied our need, and we have the resilience needed for us to listen and ask people to open up their heart more and just tell us what they have in their mind and their heart, and we can just reflect because we have already practicing this empathy gym, you said?
Empathy gym, you know, the gym, our own training center, right?
That's very good. Yeah, the empathy gym, right. Mm-hmm.
So all our empathy muscles are all strengthened, and you know, our resilience is there. So we don't we have the strength when we're in that to be able to. It's like you were saying, to be able to listen first, right? And that's the problem at these demonstrations. Nobody wants to listen first in general. I mean, it's generalizing. So we're the ones that say, hey, we are the strong ones. We have the strength. We have the resilience. You know, we can listen first. We don't mind, you know, because tell us anything. Be as nasty as you want to be. Just be as demeaning. Be as judgmental. It's fine with me. You know, I'm willing to listen. You know, tell me all your insults. You know, it's like, I'm here to listen. That's fine. Because we have our resilience. There's a certain strength that we have because we've been at the empathy gym. I was at the empathy gym, son.
That's very good, really good. Okay, so what you see is that the practice we get from the empathy gym can have a social impact. So when we find ourselves in the middle of a protest or any other social conflict, we can take the initiative and tell them that, you know, guys, we're here to listen to you first. We're not afraid of your potential insights. Share whatever you want to share with us. And we're here to listen, and we are able to do this because our empathy muscles have already been strengthened because we have worked out in the empathy gym. So we are ready to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so so when there's like articles written about the empathy tent and they get put on conservative websites, there's been 2 major ones, and there is maybe 500 replies to those articles saying how stupid the empathy tent is. It's all liberal idiots. It's snowflakes. I mean, just the insults are just, I mean, it's just one insult after the other, you know, because that's what they do. But then I always say, well, tell me more. Tell me more about that. And then I say, well, would you like to do an empathy circle with us? And then I say, I'll take 4 of you. 4 of you can talk to me and I will empathize with 4 of you at once with all your insults. It's like, I don't care. Let me hear you about you. And they all run away. It's like the 500 people, they all just disappear, you know? And really, I would be willing to listen and especially do a mutual empathy circle, but they all run away. When you're willing to listen to them, you know, they just disappear.
Okay, so you mentioned this article which had 500 comments, and these comments were not real comments, were insults. And you told them that, you know what, I'm willing to hear more, to listen more from you, and you can tell me, you can be as more aggressive as you can be, and I could even handle 4 of you. Air whatever you want to tell me, and I think I can. You said that you can empathize with them, with all 4 of them, and the reaction was that they disappeared. They didn't expect it.
Yeah, so that's it. Is we go to the empathy gym, we get our resilience, we go out and we're willing to be the first people to listen, and you know, we kind of build from there, and we try to engage them and invite them into an empathy circle, you know, well, why don't you try this? You know, first we model it, and then would you be willing to listen to me? And, you know, we try to hear what's behind their concerns. So maybe the people who say everybody's greedy, everybody's selfish, that it's like, well, tell me, how did you come to that idea? What happened? Tell me the story. It's like, well, you know, I was a little kid and somebody stole stuff from me and I realized I had to take care of myself because nobody else was going to do it. And so we kind of hear that story, and so we kind of go behind, hear the feelings behind those criticisms and try to get to the root of it.
Mm-hmm. So by listening to the people's personal stories, we can learn more about what made them feel or think the way they did. So it's for that reason, it's so crucial for us to ask more questions and motivate them to talk more about this and that. So when somebody says that, you know, I believe that these people are selfish or arrogant or whatever, it's important for us to be willing to learn more so as to understand this person's situation.
Yeah, and I'm trying to just be kind of more open, more listening, because I tend to kind of push too the empathy movements. We gotta push this, and I need to just kind of get more relaxed and more, I think, more hear my own self, my own impatience to, you know, let's make this happen. I kind of want things to happen quickly, and so I get kind of impatient with it, and you know, so that's one thing I need to kind of empathize with my own kind of impatience, you know, yeah.
So sometimes you feel that you cannot wait as much as it is needed, and you cannot hold your horses, and you're impatient, and you feel the need to empathize with your own self. So,
yeah, because I start pushing. I start pushing instead of empathizing. I kind of you know, start pushing, and I think I need to sort of take a breath, you know, relax and kind of empathize with my own, I don't know what it is behind there, my own, I mean, I have a lot of patience, but then I also feel like we need to, I don't know, so that's kind of like my edge, right? It's like because my sister always complains. She says, you're always pushing me. We need to do this. And she doesn't like it. So I think that's one thing I need to do is be more empathic with people instead of like pushing. So, and let things emerge out of the empathy, you know, that something will shift and some kind of a next step will emerge just out of the empathy.
Mm-hmm. So you realize the need for you to change a few things in your react, because even your sister has complained that you're being a little pushy and you just make her you ask her to do things she might not be ready or willing to do, and you think that it's better for you to step back, take a few breaths and just wait more, because things need their own time, and you realize that you have to do something about it.
Yeah, like I want things to kind of, like we gotta, it's like somehow take some kind of action. You know, I want things to feel that there's this sense of forward motion and kind of action. And so I just feel it in myself to kind of, we gotta push, we gotta make this happen, we gotta do this. But it kind of creates, there's a quality of kind of constriction that happens when I do that. And I don't want to move from that. And I actually like it. The sense of constriction creates a sense of something happening, but I think it's not healthy. So yeah, that's something I'm trying to deal with myself. I think it comes from my, you know, growing up, my parents German, you got to push. It's all, you know, you got to work, you got to, you know, you got to suffer, you got to.
Okay, so you feel that this emotional constriction might be a form of illusion, might give you the sense that something is going on, that some more action is taking place, while this is not the case. And you think that it's because of your childhood, or you're influenced by your parents, that you feel to push things, because by doing this, you might have the outcome you need sooner. But you think that this might damage your health, and for that reason, to change it now.
Yeah, it's like even working in the physical, like you're working in the garden, you know, it's like, you know, I work really hard, you know, like I really physically push, or if I'm building something, I really sort of push. And so that sense of pushing it actually feels kind of good in some ways. It kind of creates a sense of strong feeling, you know, there's an edge to it, there's a little something. And so in some sense, I kind of like it. But then on another hand, I'm not sure how empathic it is. You know, it causes constriction. And I think the route I want to take is more of a unfolding, the sense of ease and a sense of, kind of ease somehow.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes this pushing yourself to your limits feels good, and when you spend time gardening or fixing or building things, it might feel good to you that you are taking real action. However, your goal regarding empathy is just to bring to people a feeling of how can I say, easiness, and that things should just run smoothly instead of pushing them. And you think that this is, I mean, for this reason, you have to change it. That it's not aligned with the main vision you have for empathy, where people should be free to open up, to do things their own way, and not having ourselves pushing them to do things.
Yeah, because I push people, and then that kind of turns people off, I think, because they don't want to be pushed. Because I push myself, you know, but so my way of dealing with that empathically is just to share it, right? This is a situation. That's why I'm sharing it with you, as a way of kind of kind of being empathic about it. It's the same thing with the anxiety. I share the anxiety. I share my sense of pushing, and then I empathize, and I get heard by you too, which kind of helps create empathic space around it. So you're really helping me, really contributing to my addressing this.
Oh, that's so good. So it seems that you really enjoy the chance you have to share with me your worries and all these thoughts about pushing people, pushing yourself and all this. And this is a bright example of empathizing and with another person, and you feel that the other person pays attention to you, and you can open yourself safely and feel satisfied.
Yeah. And in some sense, I guess I celebrate there's only two of us, because it's more time for each of us to get empathic listening. So I'm sorry, Stefan and Ingrid, I'm having a good time here.
So it seems that tonight that we are just the two of us. You have more time to open up yourself, and this is let's say like a medicine for you, that you feel better because you share yourself, and you don't have to keep them hidden in your heart and just feel these emotional constrictions you said before.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, is that's another thing for empathy building, is to have empathy buddies, where you just have two people listening to each other like we're doing. And then, we have groups, but then you don't have as much time to share. If you have just, have a couple of empathy buddies that you can share what's going on. So you have a couple of people who you have like an hour or more with, where you do this empathic listening. So it's kind of like your priest, right? It's like, or nature or the God or whatever, that you have that space. We're creating a personal space where you just have one person to be that person. It's nice to have a couple too, where you can share, because we get different energies from each person. So I think that could be for the training. It's like, it's not just this training, but that outside you will have your empathy buddy, and you will talk with each other and share what's going on in your life.
Can you explain this empathy buddy a little more?
Okay, so like right now it's just two people talking with each other, and we're sharing what's going on in our life. So we both have a lot more time to share than if there's 4 or 6 or 8 of us in the group. So it's very helpful to have a couple of friends or other people that support empathy who do this mutual empathic listening with each other to support empathy. And so, so it can be very helpful.
Mm-hmm. So you said that taking our session tonight as an example, it is very helpful for people to have their empathy buddy, where they can open up their heart and just empathize with each other. They could take turns and air their feelings and fears and good moments and whatever they have. And you find as a very valuable experience.
Mm-hmm. And it can be in addition to the empathy training. That, right, you do the empathy training in the group, but then on the side you have a couple empathy buddies who you do just more intensive empathic listening with them.
Oh, how can this happen? I mean, two people are listening to us. We discuss.
No, to each other privately.
So we discuss, and Stefan and Ingrid do what? They discuss.
Oh. Yeah, well, no, at a different time, not during our training, but this is in addition. Like I have a friend, it's an empathy buddy. I speak for half an hour, and just for half an hour, he does empathic listening, and then we switch, and for half an hour, I listen to him. So that's like a different, like here, we're kind of switching, talking a little switching, but there's different structures. A structure where you get a whole half hour to share. It's kind of a bit more like you might get in a therapy, right? In a therapist, you get an hour, but you just kind of do mutual half hours, or you can even do an hour where you get an hour to speak about what's going on in your life, and your empathy buddy listens, and the next time you get an hour, and then they get an hour the next time. So there's a lot of different ways we can structure this, but yeah.
Without reflection.
With reflection.
Okay, so you speak for 30 minutes and I reflect and
Yeah.
then I start. Okay, okay. So you try to explain to me how how empathy bodies work. I mean, what kind of I mean, it's a different form of empathic listening where
Mm-hmm.
people might, I mean, in a 1 hour session, I can speak first, for example, for 30 minutes, then you can reflect on what I've said, and then you speak um, for another 30 minutes, and I can reflect. And this is more like the form of a therapeutic session.
Mm-hmm.
This is you feel and you know that when it comes to empathic listening, there are many forms
Yeah. Uh-huh.
practice we can take.
Right. Uh-huh. So yeah, that's just in addition. I'm just thinking because we're doing a little bit of an empathy buddy call here, right? And it's fun, and I think you get a lot more time to share, and you're able to go deeper too.
Yeah, you feel that this kind of session, as the one we are having tonight, it is giving you great pleasure because you have more time to learn more about each other,
Yeah.
speak more instead of being more people, and so it seems that you really enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel heard.
Okay. Oh, I forgot. I really wanted to tell you something.
Okay. So you really had something, and it's just slipped your mind, and it just disappeared.
Yeah, I disappeared. I'm sorry. I can't recall right now.
Just looking for it, and it's just not coming to you.
Yeah, it's not. It's just what I want to say is that it's so simple to give pleasure to each other, real pleasure, by listening to what the other person has to say and just pay attention. And it's so sad that people don't make this present to each other. It costs nothing, it has such great value, and we are not willing to do that. Bad luck.
Yeah, so you're just noticing it has a lot of pleasure and just hearing others, and it doesn't cost anything, and there's a sense of sadness that it's just not more widespread, and people just don't do that with each other.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
kind of sitting with that sadness and maybe wanting to do something about it too.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I remember what I want to say. You talked before about your, you push yourself. You might push others because you want a result. But you know what, Edwin? I have heard these words coming from many people who are doers, and I have never seen a person in my life who really had made something, and the person wasn't demanding towards themselves or others. I mean, doers are pushy, and they are anxious, they have sleepless nights, they might get sick, they might, because they want things to happen. I haven't seen anybody in my life who did things and was, carefree, without any worries. I haven't seen and I haven't read about anybody being like this.
Mm-hmm. So you're just addressing what I had talked about, that the anxiety, the pushing, that you're seeing some benefits to it, that there's people who do create, who do something and try to actually make something happen, that's sort of a trait that they have. And so you have some sort of understanding for that in terms of kind of getting things done, and the people who are just kind of, just wanting to just feel good or just whatever, that they don't kind of get anything done. So you see some benefit in terms of that pushiness.
Yes, exactly. And I also want to say that I fully understand you and I fully empathize with you. I'm one of them. And because I'm result oriented, and I want things to be done in right, proper way. I take people's feelings seriously, no matter if they take mine seriously or not. That's their project. My project is to take theirs seriously. And I know that people who want to have a result might sometimes be overly demanding. That's not something we should keep, but it's something we should welcome because it's something that we have, is how we are made. And we just try to manage it, control it, but without pushing yourself to your limits. I don't really think that you can make many things. I'm not.
So you're so you're a doer. You're a doer as well. You want to kind of have results and have things happen and something, kind of be created. And so you have a sense of that as well. And that you want to be, you want to push and get things done and make things happen, but not get over the limit. There's sort of a limit that's going to be unhealthy or something. And so you don't want to push over that limit, but you do want to get things done.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to comment on what you said before about the 500 comments. And you said that when you told people, yeah, I'm here, I can just listen to you, and they just, change directions. It reminded me of what Jesus had said, that if an enemy just slap you on one cheek, turn the other cheek. I mean, this guy was just, that was amazing. I mean, you see, kindness is so powerful. It's very powerful. I really believe that when you are kind to people who have betrayed you, you just deactivate them. They cannot understand the language. They say, what? I mean, not being naive, but you know that, no, I'm not going to pay you back the way you treat me. I will be up to my moral standards. I'll keep myself up to this level, and then it's your problem what you're gonna do next. So you're calling me names. Okay, tell me more. Tell me more. And because this does not diminish my value, my personal value. It just gives you the chance to show me who you are.
So you're kind of building on what I was talking about with the 500 negative comments. That reminds me of Jesus, who would turn the other cheek. If you get hit on one cheek, then turn it for the other. And it sounds like you have that quality too, that you see that that you can listen to others, and it's like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to hear what's going on for you, and hear more deeply into hearing what they are, who they are. I think there was something else in there, but.
Yeah, I might not be very willing to hear people calling me names. I don't think that happens in my life. I mean, since since I stopped being a teenager, where people, might fight, blah, blah. I didn't find myself in this situation, but I can definitely say that in cases where I haven't been treated properly, then I decided not to pay them back. I decided to keep being who I am, and I said, we can just keep some distance, but I'm not going to pay you the same way.
Okay, so when somebody name calls you, kind of lashes out at you, you don't respond with name calling and lashing out at, well, you might create some distance from them, but not respond in kind.
Yeah. Yes, almost yes. What I said was that it's not, they don't really call me names. I mean, this belongs to the past when but now, as an adult, when it happened to me not to be treated the right way by people, I decided not to pay them back the same way. I decided just to keep myself the way I am. And I just try to step back a bit and just keep them at some distance.
Okay, so the name calling was just as you were as a kid, maybe in school, grammar school or whatever. And nowadays people may mistreat you in some way, and there you don't respond in kind, but again, keep a little distance from them. But you don't respond with sort of lashing back at them.
No, because I think I believe that in an argument, the smarter the smartest is the one who should be blamed for the disagreement, for the argument. Meaning that if you are smart enough to understand the motives of the other people, of the other person, and you shouldn't treat them the way they have treated you. So if you are kind to me, let's say, and I end up being disrespectful to you, this shows something about who I am. It's not your problem if I don't appreciate your kindness. It's my problem.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to treat me the same way. We just keep being who you are, and sooner or later I might realize who I am.
Mm-hmm. So there's it's about being yourself, in the sense that you're just looking at who you are in yourself and not kind of lashing out, and that in time they will kind of see that.
Yeah, they will realize.
You're kind of like grounded in yourself, and you kind of win, in a sense. You're kind of winning because you're the one that's kind of grounded.
Yeah, I mean that if you are a kind person and if you are a good friend and I end up not being a good friend, then I mean, sooner or later you're gonna come up with good friends because you are a good person. But if I'm a bad, a bad person, if I have a bad personality, who is going to trust me? Sooner or later, I will end up with the people I deserve to be with, and you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So if you come from a kind, caring space, awareness, and relate to people, eventually those are the type of people you will attract. You'll have friends that are that way. And if you're kind of not unkind and uncaring, that those are the type of friends that you'll
end up being
around you. Yeah. So you'll have a better, by being kind, you'll have a better quality of life.
Yes, and better health.
And health too. Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay, well, it's almost our time here. So what do you think is our next step then? In terms of the training, well, we have
only 5 minutes.
Yeah.
What do you say now? Oh,
it goes fast, huh? When
you mean about how you gonna organize your workshops?
Yeah, about what would you like to do next? We've got next week. Stefan said he will be back next week. I think Ingrid is going to be gone next week, but she had a question about the 3rd, which is the Labor Day, a holiday. So I have to see what Stefan says, because it's.
So you asked me, you know what, I would like next time to practice empathic listening for, let's say, for an hour. Or you know what if we try to do this, not half an hour, but 20 minutes?
Okay.
Well, we could. For example, we can say 20 minutes, you 20 minutes, me, then 10 minutes, 10 minutes. So we can cover 1 hour. I mean, I don't know, or 20 minutes reflection, 20 minutes reflection. Then what if we move on to organizing the culture of empathy, just to talk about the workshops you would like to organize, how we can just, what are the parameters we should take into consideration, and, just start managing it.
Okay, yeah, and I think it would be good with Stefan too, because he wants to bring the training into his class. So we could talk about some specific steps to do on the 27th next week.
Oh, because I think he said that he might not. He's coming on the 27th.
I think he said I just got an email. Let's see. He apologized for not responding because I hadn't heard from him, Stefan. And he says, sorry, I've been absent. Will return next week. I've been traveling and interviewing for a new position. So he will return next week. So it'd be good. Yeah, so we could just start with a little bit of listening and then go into some kind of designs. stuff.
Oh, okay, okay. I was under the impression that Stefan wouldn't be with us next week either. Okay, sure. We can do this empathic listening, and do you want us to discuss a few things? You know, do you want us to create a Google Doc and just throw on this a few ideas about how you would like to organize your workshops and then discuss them next Monday? Would you like us to do this during this week? You can create a doc.
Do you want to, did you want to create some kind of an outline, some of your thoughts to?
Yeah, but I just want to have some time. We could discuss it today and then
Okay.
to go on and write down a few things.
So let me just, actually I'll stop the recording here.
It'll be like